I am just flabbergasted at how amazing this was. Hi everyone, my name is Kayla and welcome back to Kay's Hidden Shelf where we talk about books. Today we're going to be talking about Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I devoured this in 2 sittings and my emotions have been not only swayed, but my imagination has been captured, and this takes you through quite the wild ride. Now, I want to go back a little bit in time before I actually delve into my full thoughts on this. And of course, this will be spoiler free as well, because in my opinion, this is a book best experienced for yourself and going in as blind as possible. That being said, when I originally tried to start this book closer to when it was released back in 2020, I struggled to get into it, to settle into it. It felt jarring and confusing at times, and I decided it was just best to put it down and come back to it at another point. There are a few things that could have impacted that for me, being mood, since I'm a mood reader, or just that I've read more in the genre since then as well, with this being a fantasy with elements of magic realism and so on. So this is just what happened. Sometimes that happens with books for me. I need to put them down and come back at a better time. That being said, I could have been sleep deprivation too. As a parent, that is always a struggle to balance wanting to do the things that you want to do in life with the mental capacity that you're left with at the end of the day when dealing with a small child. So time has passed, and what brought this back onto my radar was actually seeing a read-along being hosted by my friend Tori Talks. I believe this was through her Patreon, and I immediately thought I needed to give it another go. It was time to try again, and immediately there was a huge difference in how I was thrown into the story. It was a completely different experience to my first time, where I was confused. I was now curious, where I felt like it was jarring. It was now mesmerizing. And it just goes to show where your mindset can make a huge difference in how you experience a book as well. The story itself follows Piranesi in his house, and it's a house unlike any other. It's filled with grand statues and an ocean that basically runs through the halls and changes with a shifting tide. It's really hard to survive in this house, and despite that, Piranesi has an unwavering understanding and adoration of his home. Now, aside from Piranesi, there's only one other person in this house whom Piranesi refers to simply as the other. This other person has requested Piranesi's help in exploring and cataloging the house, its mysteries, its beauty, all of it, and they meet twice a week to discuss his findings. Here's where things start to get a bit tense. As Piranesi is exploring the house, he finds evidence of another person, but also writings and other forms of evidence that show a terrible truth and secret that's been hidden from him, and the possibility of another world outside the house. So once you start reading, you are dropped right into the mindset, the musings of Piranesi himself, as this is a single POV. You are viewing the world through his eyes, and it's quite incredible. He has such an awe and a scientific curiosity. He believes in logic and reason and exploration. All of these things make him a completely compelling character for me, as he relies so much on the house providing for him in terms of fishing for his survival, but it can destroy him at a moment's notice if he is not monitoring and counting the tides, for example, because a room can all of a sudden be flooded if he is not mindful. Despite this, he loves the house, its mysteries, the unknowns, the beauty of it, and being dropped right into his perspective of all of this was just captivating. It was endearing in a way, but it opens up a lot of mystery, as the house is the only thing Piranesi knows, and he obviously doesn't know everything about it. Now, this story drops readers off right into Piranesi's POV, his musings, and this otherworldly home that he lives in. You're given an intimate look into his life, from his philosophical views, passion for logic and science and exploration, and the adoration he has for his home, this house. The house is also unique as it's labyrinth-like, mesmerizing, filled with giant and small and all kinds of statues depicting people, minotaurs and creatures and worlds. And it's filled with birds and fish and ocean-like creatures, but at the same time, there's not much life beyond Piranesi, the other, and the animals that habitat the house. To me, Piranesi's perspective of the house helps give readers an insight into the beauty that he sees, because otherwise I'm not sure I would have seen it as awe-inspiring and beautiful as he did. And it adds a level of mysticism, magic, and mystery to the overall story as well. Now, there are a few aspects that really sold this to me as an incredible read. The first being the main character's disposition, his perspectives, all of his traits combined just drew me in. It invested me in the story. There's an innocent nature to him, but that drive to continue to explore was inspiring, seeing the beauty in things, like I said, and so much more. That's only just scratching the surface. The other aspect I think that really brought this story to a grand level is the way the author decided to tell it, and that's through a single point of view, being Piranesi. Similar to how we live our day to day, we don't have all the answers. When we're dealing with a struggle or a conflict, or we're caught up in something that is bigger than us, we only have the information at hand that we have experienced, come across, what have you. And that makes this more real, in my opinion. It adds a level of realism to it, because that is what happens with Piranesi. We only know the information that Piranesi knows and discovers along the way. That adds a level of realism to it that makes the overarching story as enthralling, thrilling, and shocking as it is, but it also makes me personally more invested, because we get a more narrow scope to this story and what's actually happening. While we don't get all the answers, we get plenty as you continue to read, and I was hooked. I didn't want to put this down. The way it's woven together with that POV, the developments, the entire experience of it just snowballs in a way that makes you think, but also allows you to enjoy the ride at the same time. There's also a blending of genres that worked really well, from fantasy, magical realism, to horror, mythology, and mystery, all of it. And it's just a thrilling exploration of psychology and human nature to boot, not counting the fact that the pacing keeps you reading. By the time you've hit 25%-ish, you are on for the ride. It just takes off, and it doesn't let up. For me, this is one of those rare reads that doesn't let up and doesn't disappoint. So to say anything more, I think would be spoilery. So I am going to cut this as a short review, because I think, like I said, this is best experienced for yourself. Go on that ride. It is 100% worth the hype, in my opinion. Susanna Clarke has well earned it. And yes, I think it was an absolutely wonderful read. I personally listened to the audiobook, and the narrator, who I am probably going to butcher the name, Chitawel Ejiofor. I am so sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but they gave a stellar performance to this. I don't think I could hear this story any other way. So phenomenal job all around. And yes, if this is one that sounds up your alley, or maybe you try it now and it doesn't quite work, like I said, for me, I needed to try it a little later on. So keep it in your back pocket and maybe for a rainy day, because once you start, you might not be able to put it down. What do you think? Have you read this already? Leave your thoughts down below. Did it make it to your TBR? I'd love to know. As always, thank you so much for watching and take care of yourselves.